stars were quiet but not peaceful. In a far corner of the galaxy, something strange was happening. Ships were disappearing, not crashing. It's not destroyed, just ... gone. Alien fleets that dared to enter that dark zone never came back. The galaxy named it the Silent Zone, but the name didn't help them sleep at night. Everyone feared it. Captains refused to fly near it. Even pirates avoided it. The stories were all the same: ships turned to dust, or worse, crews driven. Mad by voices in their heads, no one knew what lived there. Some called it a monster. Others believed it was the universe punishing those who got too close. The truth was, no one ever survived to tell it. But on Earth, in a hidden lab far from the public eye, a man was smiling as he watched that same zone. Dr. Elias Kane, human scientist known for his strange ideas, had spent years studying signals. From the Silent Zone, while others feared it, he called it beautiful. He believed something was alive in there. Something old, something powerful. He didn't want to fight it. He wanted to understand it. The galaxy said he was insane, but Earth was different. Humans were not like other species. Where others saw death, humans saw opportunity. Kane stood in front of the Earth Defense Council, calm and confident. "We need to go in," he said. The room fell silent. The generals thought he was joking. He wasn't. "I want to make contact," he added. "I want a sample." One of the commanders shouted, "You want to poke the monster that ate fleets?" Kane smiled. "I want to shake its hand." Despite warnings from alien allies and protests from Earth-Zone scientists, Kane got permission. The mission was top secret. No public announcements. No media. It's just Kane, his small crew, and a ship called the Asteria. It was built for stealth, coated in shadow tech, and layered with psychic shields. They launched at midnight, slipping into deep space like a whisper. Their target, the edge of the Silent Zone. The journey took 12 days. Everything outside looked normal: stars, empty space, silence. But inside the ship, tension grew. Crew members felt watched. One said he saw a reflection move differently in the mirror. What? Another heard whispers at night, but no one was there. Kane told them to stay calm. "It's reacting to us," he said. "That means it's real." As they crossed into the zone, the ship's sensors went blind. Lights flickered. Gravity twisted. One engineer threw up. Then, without warning, the ship stopped. Not because they used the brake, space itself seemed to freeze. The stars outside didn't move. The engines didn't hum. Or maybe it just felt that way. Suddenly, a deep hum echoed through the ship, not through speakers, through their bones. The crew froze. One woman screamed, but nothing attacked. Nothing showed on screens, just that hum. Then a voice, not loud, not sharp, just present. It spoke in perfect English, even though no one had sent a message. "I see you." Kane didn't panic. He walked to the console and calmly replied, "We see you too. We're not here to hurt you." No answer came. Just silence. Then the lights dimmed. The hull groaned. And outside the ship, something moved. Not a creature. Not a ship. Just a shape. A shadow in the stars. It had no form, but it was massive. Bigger than a moon. And it was watching them. The crew held their breath. Kane whispered, "This is it. We're the first." The shape moved closer, and then the voice returned. "Why are you not afraid?" Kane answered without fear. "Because I came to understand. I came to ask for a sample." The ship shook slightly, as if space itself was laughing. Then the voice said something that chilled even Kane's blood. "You may take one, but only if you survive me." The stars outside began to twist. Ship spun. And just like that, they were falling into something far worse than space. The monster had no name, but now it had guests. The ship spun through darkness that did not feel like space. There were no stars now, only shifting shadows and broken light. The crew gripped their seats as alarms screamed uselessly. Nothing made sense. Gravity pulled in strange directions. and time ticked slower on one side of the room than the other. It was as if the laws of nature had taken a break. Dr. Kane stayed calm, watching the madness with wide, curious eyes. This wasn't just space, it was a mind, a living space. The monster was not a beast. It was a place, a presence, a thinking force stretched across light years. And they were now inside it. The crew of the Asteria didn't know how long they'd been there. Hours, minutes, days. One man, Corporal Levin, swore he saw his own childhood home floating outside the window. Another saw his dead mother waving at him from behind a wall of stars. The ship's systems had stopped working. No power. No engines. No shields. But they were not dead. Something was keeping them alive. Something that wanted them to see. As the ship floated in silence, the outside began to change. First came the lights, purple and green glows, moving like rivers through space. Then came shapes. Massive, broken ships. Alien vessels twisted and torn open, drifting like bones. Some looked ancient. Some looked brand new. Kane recognized a few from historical records. These were ships that had entered the silent zone across centuries and never returned. Their crews, gone, or worse. Something had torn through them from the inside. Private Juno, one of the youngest on board, started to cry. "We're going to die here," she whispered. Kane didn't respond. He was staring. At one wreck in particular, a Zarnian dreadnought. Its hull was split open like a crushed can, but inside, words were burned into the metal in dozens of languages. All said the same thing. Don't listen to the voice. Too late, the voice returned. Not loud, not angry, calm. You are curious. That is rare. Kane stepped forward. I came to understand. I believe you're not just a force of destruction. You are something else. Silence again. Then all others feared me. They screamed. They fired weapons. They ran. You did not. Kane nodded. Fear blinds the mind. I want to learn. I want to connect. Then learn this, the voice replied. And suddenly, the walls of the ship vanished. Not physically, but in their minds, they were now elsewhere. Each crew member stood alone in a field of stars, floating. No suits, no ship, just them and the stars. They couldn't breathe, but they didn't die. They didn't feel pain, they felt watched, measured, not by eyes, but by thoughts. Test. Kane heard at first his own voice, asking questions he had never spoken aloud. Would you kill? To know the truth? Would you risk your species to touch a secret? He didn't answer. Then came a hum so deep it felt like pressure on their hearts. The monster wasn't angry. It was thinking. It was deciding. Then, without warning, they were back, inside the ship. Lights flickered back to life. Gravity returned. Everyone gasped for air, though they'd never really stopped breathing. Private Juno screamed again. Look. Outside, the stars had returned, but not normal stars. They were twisted, spun into spirals, glowing with strange symbols. A map. A living map. Kane understood instantly. The monster, no. The being had given them something. A message. A test. A challenge. The voice echoed one more time. You may ask. You may sample. But survive first. Show me your truth. The ship's console beeped to life again. Coordinates. A place deeper inside the silent zone. A place no ship had ever seen. Kane smiled. He wants us to go further. The rest of the crew looked afraid, but something had changed. Was still a danger, but it was also ... listening. They were not just explorers now. They were guests in the mind of something older than stars. And the path forward was open. The ship glided slowly through the darkness, following the new coordinates sent by the voice. The stars outside twisted and bent in strange ways, like they were being pulled by something deep inside the zone. Space felt thick, like swimming through. Serep, the Asteria systems were working again, but not fully. Some screens showed symbols they couldn't read. Others flickered between reality and something else, images of unknown galaxies. Ancient battles and creatures that couldn't exist. The crew was silent. No one cracked jokes. No one argued. They had entered the monster's mind, and it was still watching them. Dr. Kane stood in front of the main display, studying the map formed by the strange stars. He didn't speak much now. He just watched and listened. The crew didn't understand how calm he was. They had seen ships torn apart, felt time break, and heard their own thoughts used against them. But Kane looked excited, like a student discovering a lost book. To him, this was not just a mission. It was a moment that would change history. After hours of slow travel, the ship arrived at the location. There was nothing outside. Just a dark stretch of space, empty and silent. The crew waited. Then, without warning, a ripple passed through the ship's soft, like a breath, and then the voice returned. You came. It wasn't a question. Kane stepped forward. Yes. You showed us something. We followed. You passed the first test, the voice said. Others failed. They screamed. They burned. You listened. What are you? Kane asked, his voice calm. Not a monster, not a weapon, something more. I am NH Recall, the voice replied. Thought born before stars. A guardian, a memory. The crew exchanged glances. The name meant nothing to them, but Kane's eyes lit up. I've read that word, he said. Ancient human texts. Forgotten symbols. You've been here longer than we knew. I was part of the first shaping, said the voice. Before suns, before time. Juno whispered. Are we talking to a god? No, Kane said. We're talking to a being who watched the universe grow, break. The screens changed again. This time not with maps or symbols, but memories. Images appeared. The birth of stars. The fall of entire galaxies. Great wars fought not with weapons, but with thoughts. Creatures so massive they moved between dimensions. At the center of it all, a dark shape. Always watching, always listening. I protected balance, it said. Until others came. Races who feared. They attacked me. Broke what they did not understand. Kane watched one of the images on alien fleet launching nuclear fire into the dark. He saw the result. Their ships vanished, not destroyed, absorbed. Taken apart molecule by molecule. You didn't attack first, Kane said quietly. You defended yourself. I remember everything, NH Alcohol replied. I remember pain. I remember fear, but now I see curiosity in you. Kane stood tall. That's why we're here. I want to learn. I want to take a sample, a piece of you, to study. Not for power, for knowledge. The ship was silent for a long moment. Then, the voice spoke again. You may take one. Not yet. I must know your truth. I must see your core. Before I share mine, the walls around them shimmered. Ship began to vibrate, not violently but deeply, like a song played through metal. What's happening? Levin asked. Kane turned to him. We're being tested again. Outside the ship, the dark changed. A strange shape, formed like a gate, made of stars and shadow. It opened slowly. Behind it, something waited. A broken world. A twisted reality. A place where nothing made sense, and everything felt alive. Nurkahal spoke one last time. Step forward. Face what hides inside you. Only then may you hold a piece of me. The Asteria moved toward the gate. For the first time, Kane looked unsure. They were about to enter a place shaped not by physics, but by fear. The monster was not testing their strength. It was testing their souls. As the ship crossed the glowing gate, reality bent around it like soft cloth. Inside, space wasn't black anymore. It was red, gold, and purple, all swirling together like a living storm. The stars blinked in patterns that felt like they were watching. The crew of the Asteria stared out in silence. No one spoke. No one. Words didn't feel real here? Thoughts were louder than voices? And something was listening? Then the first vision came. Private Juno screamed. She pointed at the wall, eyes wide in terror. But the others saw nothing, only metal. It's her, she cried. It's my sister. She's dead, but she's here. Kane ran to her, grabbed her shoulders. It's not real. This place shows what we fear, what we regret. Corporal Levin shouted next. Fire spread across his console, backed away fast, sweating, but Kane saw no flames. It's in your mind, he said. It's not trying to kill us. It's trying to see what we are. Outside space folded. Shapes moved long and thin, like shadows wearing armor. But when Kane tried to scan them, the system said they didn't exist. They weren't ghosts. They weren't real. They were ideas, walking through matter. One by one, each crew member faced something personal, something painful. Juno saw her sister blaming her for a childhood accident. Levin saw his old commander dead and burning. Their past friends, enemies, even themselves. The air inside the ship grew cold. Not physically, but emotionally. Their minds were being peeled open. But Kane waited. He knew it was coming. His own test. He stood alone in the main chamber when it happened. The lights dimmed. Shadow formed in front of him. It looked like him but older, eyes empty, skin gray. You chase knowledge, it said, but why? Do you want peace or power? I want understanding, Kane answered. The shadow laughed. You want control? You want to own what cannot be owned? You want to hold the unknown in a glass box? Kane stepped forward. No, I want to protect others from fearing what they don't understand. I want to stop them from repeating your pain. The shadow change turned into his childhood self, sitting in a library, alone. Then show me, it whispered. The scene vanished. The ship's systems powered back up. The voice returned. You did not fight. You did not run. You faced your fear. Outside, the strange storm faded. The colors drained back into space, and a path opened ahead, calm, straight, and quiet. At the end of the path, a small object floated. A crystal, about the size of a heart. It pulsed softly with golden light. The hysteria moved toward it slowly. No weapons. No shields. Just silence. The crystal floated into the airlock by itself. No force, no resistance. Kane stared at it. It wasn't just a piece of NHR single quotes, K. It was alive. You have earned your request, the voice said. But understand this is not a trophy. It is a seed, Juno asked. A seed of what? Of thought, Netrikahal replied. Of memory. Of me, Kane nodded slowly. We'll treat it with care. No, said the voice. You will. Treat it with truth. As the ship turned around, following the safe path out of the zone, no one cheered. No one laughed. They had survived something older than fear. But the journey wasn't over. Now they carried something that had survived. Stars and war and silence, something that might one day awaken. And they still didn't know what would happen when it did. The hysteria broke free from the silent zone in silence. Space returned to normal, stars stayed in place, time moved evenly, and the air inside the ship felt lighter. But no one relaxed. The crew sat still, eyes watching the small containment chamber in the center of the ship, where the crystal floated, pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. Golden light shimmered across the walls, and sometimes, for just a second, it seemed to blink. Dr. Kane didn't sleep. He sat beside the crystal, studying its glow, recording every movement, every shift in color. But there was one thing that worried him. The crystal was growing. Slowly, yes, but it was undeniable. The object that had entered the chamber, barely. The size of a heart was now bigger than a human fist. It wasn't just reacting. It was changing. Back on Earth, alarms went off. Space watch stations picked up strange energy spikes around the planet's orbit, tiny fluctuations in gravity, satellite paths shifting by a few centimeters. The readings made no sense. They were small, but not random. Something was bending space near Earth. When the hysteria sent word they had returned and that they carried a living sample from the silent zone, the Earth Defense Council went into panic mode. Orders were sent. Ships prepared for quarantine. Scientists and generals argued. Alien allies begged Earth to destroy the crystal immediately. One message stood out. It came from the Zarn, an ancient species who had lost thousands of ships in the silent zone. Their ambassador's voice shook as he said, You don't understand what you've brought back. That thing is not a sample. It's a shadow of something that should never enter a living system. Burn it, before it remembers what it is. But Kane refused. This isn't a weapon, he said during a private council call. It's knowledge. It chose us. It let us live. It wants to understand us just as much as we want to understand it. You don't know that? One of the generals said. What if it's learning so it can spread? Kane only replied, then maybe it should. While the council argued, the crystal continued to grow. Now, it had veins of silver running through it. It no longer floated. It hovered, spinning slowly, without touch. The walls around it began to change, too. The metal bent slightly toward the crystal, like gravity itself was shifting. Then, on the third night back, it created something. It! Crew woke to a strange sound like wind, though the ship was sealed. In the lab, the crystal had produced a black sphere. Perfectly smooth, small, cold to the touch. It hovered in midair, pulsing once every few seconds. Kane stared at it for a long time. It's not just growing, he whispered. It's building. The sphere gave off no radiation, no heat, like its presence felt heavy, like it was older than the metal around it. Juno asked, "What is it?" Kane didn't answer. He didn't know. Hours later, the Earth Defense Council gave a final warning. Return the sample to deep space, or destroy it. Earth's orbit was changing. Strange. Signals had started bouncing off the moon, repeating the same sound in different languages she hears. No one knew what it meant. No one wanted to find out. Kane ignored the order. Instead, he sent a message not to Earth, but to the stars. He simply said, "We're listening," and the sphere cracked open, not broken hatched. A shape rose from it, humanoid, glowing softly. Its skin shimmered like glass filled with stars. It didn't speak, but its thoughts flooded the room. I am not him. I am what comes next. Kane fell to his knees, overwhelmed by its voice in his mind. The others watched in silent terror. The crystal had not given them a piece of the past. It had given them a child. And now, Earth was no longer just a planet. It was a cradle. The figure stood silently in the center of the lab, surrounded by terrified eyes. Its body was tall and slim, made of light and shadow, like glass filled with the night sky. Stars pulsed within it, and its movements were slow, thoughtful, as if it were still learning how to be alive. The crew of the Asteria backed away, weapons drawn, but Kane raised a hand. "No one fires," he said firmly. "It hasn't hurt anyone." The being tilted its head, as if curious. Though it had no mouth, its voice appeared in their minds, soft, distant, and impossible to ignore. "Am not a weapon. I am a bridge." Kane stepped closer. "A bridge to what? To understanding? Between your kind and what watches the stars?" Back on Earth, panic spread like wildfire. The Asteria's footage was leaked. The glowing being, the pulsing crystal, the sphere that had opened like an agate, all hit the public like a storm. Some worshipped it, calling it a miracle. Others called it the beginning of the end. Religious leaders demanded it be destroyed. Alien allies cut communications. One species even moved their entire fleet away from Earth's sector. Within 24 hours, Earth's skies changed. Satellites reported a new object floating above the planet just outside orbit. No one launched it. No signal came from it. It was large, black, and shaped like a teardrop. Scientists tried to scan it, but all signals bounced off. Missiles fired at it simply vanished mid-flight. It did nothing. It just, hung there watching? The child being aboard the Asteria looked up through the ceiling, as if it felt the object arrive. "It protects," it said. "I called it." Kane stared at the being. "You brought something here. Not a thing. A part of me. It is my anchor, my home, my parent." The ship shook slightly. Not from impact, but from energy. The crystal, now quiet, was changing. Again, its light dimmed, and a new pattern formed on its surface, spirals that looked like galaxies. The being placed its hand on the crystal. The room filled with a low hum. Every screen flashed white. Then, a new voice appeared. not the child's. This world is marked. Others will come. Decide who you are before they do. And just like that, the voice vanished. But the message remained. Earth had been noticed. The child being, now standing calmly at the center of the ship, turned its glowing eyes to Kane. They will test you, as I was tested. Who are they? Kane asked. The others, the architects, the ones who built the silence. Some will want to speak. Some will want to burn. You mean more like you? No, the child said. More like them, and it pointed at the stars. The Earth Defense Council launched a full investigation. Military ships surrounded the Asteria in orbit. Orders were given to remove the crystal and the being by force. But when they approached, something impossible happened. The teardrop object in space unfolded, not with engines, but with space itself bending. It revealed a shape inside a city, floating in darkness, towers of energy, rivers of light, a world. Not made by hands, but by thoughts. And from that city came a voice that echoed across all languages, across all radios, into every mind tuned to Earth. Do not threaten the child. It is protected. Then it was silent again. Panic turned to fear. Earth stood at the edge of something vast. Kane looked out the window, the hovering city, then at the being beside him. We gave birth to something. That was never ours, he whispered. The being answered softly. You did not give birth. You gave me a reason to live. Now, all eyes across the galaxy turned to Earth not as a backwater planet, not as a death world, but as the world that woke the child of the stars, and no one knew if that was salvation or the beginning of war. The sky above Earth had changed. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't looking up at the stars with wonder, they were looking up with fear. That teardrop-shaped object floating silently above the planet had become the new moon. It did not move, it did not speak again. But its presence changed everything. Nations declared martial law. Religions split, alien alliances crumbled. Some tried to warn Earth, calling the being a curse. Others begged for protection, believing the child could save them from worse things. But no one knew for sure. Inside the Asteria, Kane and his crew stood beside the glowing child being. It started calling it Nova. Never chose a name, but it accepted the one they gave. Nova spoke rarely now, and when it did, it spoke with sadness, as if it could feel the fear growing on the planet below. Kane sat beside it. They're scared. Nova nodded. They should be. Fear is honest. What's coming? Kane asked. Truth. Far. From Earth, sensors picked up motion in deep space. First, just shadows. Then, confirmed signals of fleet. Thousands of ships, approaching fast, not human, not from any known alien race. They didn't respond to calls. They didn't send warnings. Just moved toward Earth, silent and focused. The galaxy panicked. No one claimed the fleet. No one stopped it. Earth's Defense Council reacted fast. The homeworld net activated. Orbital weapons powered up. Nuclear satellites armed. But deep down, they knew it wouldn't be enough. The Asteria received a single signal from the oncoming force. Return the seed. Or be erased. Kane read it twice, then turned to Nova. They mean you. Nova's voice echoed across the ship. Yes, they are not monsters. They are what comes after monsters' machines built by fear. They were made to erase anything that cannot be controlled. Kane clenched his fists. They destroyed others like you. They tried. One escaped. Me. The council ordered Nova to be handed over. Kane refused. Earth's fleet surrounded the Asteria, demanding compliance. Kane stood before the crew, tired but certain. We have two choices. Give Nova to them, or stand for something. Juno, Levin, and the others didn't hesitate. We stand, said Juno. They come for one, Kane said, but they'll judge all. As the enemy fleet entered Earth's outer space, the teardrop above the planet finally moved. It unfolded, like a flower revealing the floating city inside again. Light shone from within millions of symbols, like words spoken in light. Then a beam fired not at the fleet, but into space itself. Space bent, time twisted. The fleet slowed. Their ships didn't explode. They just stopped moving, and then Nova stood. Without leaving the ship, its body glowed brighter than a star. I was born here. I will protect here. The enemy ships began to recover. One fired a weapon, a spear of energy the size of a mountain. It shot toward Earth at light dash speed. It never landed. The beam curved, space folded, the weapon vanished. Into nothing, Kane stared in awe. You bent space? Nova nodded. I changed the rules. That's what I am. Not a weapon, not a god, a rewriter. The fleet prepared to fire again. This time, Earth's fleets joined with Nova. For the first time in history, humans stood beside. Something beyond death, beyond war, beyond time. The battle lasted only 6 minutes. Nova didn't destroy the fleet. It showed them themselves. Every ship was forced to see its own history, its own makers, its own reason for existence. They were born from fear, built by species long dead. Their only purpose had been to destroy what could not be understood. Now they understood, and they stopped, one by one. Their ships powered down. A single message followed. We surrender. Nova turned to Kane. This is not the end, Kane asked. Then what is it? Nova looked toward the stars. A warning. They had one, but someone else was watching. Someone even older, and the question remained. Who created the machines? Silence returned to Earth, but it did not bring peace. The enemy fleet had shut down. Their ships floated dead in space, like ghosts from a forgotten war. Nova, the child of the stars, stood at the center of it, all glowing softly, calm, quiet. The teardrop-shaped vessel above Earth folded closed once more, becoming still again. Earth rejoiced. Cities lit up. People celebrated what they believed was victory. But Kane knew better in his heart. He felt it. This was not the end. Nova sat in the command chamber of the Asteria, watching the stars outside. It looked almost sad. Its body shimmered with pale light, but the stars inside it pulsed slower than before. Kane walked in quietly. They're calling you a savior now, said Nova. Didn't look at him. They called me a monster first. You saved them. That does not make me safe. Kane sat down beside him. Then what happens now? Nova looked toward the blackness between the stars. They were just machines, echoes built long ago by something older, something deeper. Kane frowned. You mean someone made them? Nova nodded. They called themselves the first builders. They shaped the early galaxy. They seeded worlds. But when the monsters awakened my kind, they panicked. They created the destroyers. Machines of forgetting. To erase you? To erase anything they feared. Kane stood up. Then we're still in danger. Nova turned his glowing eyes to Kane. We all are. That night, Earth received a signal. It was soft, slow, strange, not a warning, not a threat. It was a voice, ancient, cold, full of sorrow. You have touched what was sealed. We are coming. The message came from beyond the edge of the galaxy. Too far for ships, too deep for scanners. A place known only in myth, the empty spiral. A dead zone where no light had ever escaped. Alien races trembled. The Zarn fled to hidden worlds. The Virelians closed their borders. Even the war-born Drakh ceased their fighting, because they knew that name. The first builders, the gods who had left. Now returning, Nova stood tall inside the Asteria. They are not gods. They are mistakes, and they are afraid of what I have. Become. What have you become? Kane asked. Nova's voice was quiet, something they cannot predict. The Earth Defense Council held emergency meetings. Weapons were prepared, fleets armed. But everyone knew this was different. They were not facing machines this time. They were facing the architects of fear itself, and yet Nova smiled. They fear me. But you, they do not understand. Kane stepped forward. What do you mean they shaped stars? You shaped fire. They built destroyers. You built me. Kane blinked. We didn't build you. Nova shook his head. You asked, you listened, you survived. You taught me something they never did. What's that? Nova's voice filled the room. That weakness is not the enemy of strength. It is the reason for it. The stars outside flickered. The edge of the galaxy stirred. Something massive was on its way. But Earth did not run. This time, humanity stood tall with Nova beside them. A child born of silence. A planet forged in struggle, and a message sent back across the stars. Come if you wish. But understand this, Earth is not alone anymore, because now the galaxy knew. The monsters in the stars had a child, and that child had chosen humans.